On PPK today, we're going to talk about pandemic, passion, and practicality.
But first, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe.
Welcome to another episode of PPK. I'm your co-host, the man on fire, John Sablans.
The middle child, Keone.
And your boy Meeks.
What's going on, boys?
Chilling. Quarantining.
Shelter in placing. This episode, we're going to be talking about really our dealing with a pandemic and during the time of Lent and our Lord's Passion, which is the holiest season for us as Catholics. The whole reason for our faith, and just the practicality, how that's affected us practically, and how do we continue to grow in our faith during this time of uncertainty and instability, and where a lot of things we probably took for granted and we're at our fingertips are stripped away from us. So let me start with you, Keone. How has this affected you personally?
It's just weird. So all my classes obviously are online now. So there's been a huge adjustment in that regard, you know, Zooming in classes, a lot more writing assignments. So in that regard, it's weird. So the face-to-face contact is obviously being missed, but you got to make do. At work, it's been crazy, hectic at work. Things are changing every day. Things are being implemented, changing every day at work. And so we're just kind of playing catch up and trying to figure out how we can best manage serving the clients with their mental health needs during this time of crisis, which is probably an important time for them to be able to serve them still. And then just spiritually, it's like we were talking about before, the idea of not going to confession, going to the chapel, going to mass it's been difficult. So it's an interesting adjustment, but I think God knows what he's doing in this time. So it's just a real test of faith during this Lenten season.
Mm-hmm. Meeks, what about you?
Well, for me, I packed for a week of spring break and then ended up staying the whole time till August now. So that's it. I mean, it's been a little bit weird. Obviously adjusting to just online classes, and really I think the weirdest part is not having chapel, confession, and mass to go to, because they're things that I was really trying to hone in on for Lent, and I try to make that, you know, a weekly, and then chapel like almost a daily thing. And so it becomes a challenge to really stay consistent and be focused on Lent, because there's so much things around you that you're just kind of like forgetting that that's there, you know, except on Fridays or something like that, you know, oh, I can't eat meat right now. And so I think the real adjustment has really just been about how do I continually find my purpose in a time where I'm really, you know, I'm home, I'm kind of chilling right now, classes are online, so it's a lot easier, and then you kind of get out of the rhythm that you had before, you know, because I had a pretty rigorous schedule at school of, you know, school and gym and homework and these commitments I'd have, and now it's becoming this kind of more so on me to find things to do. It's more so on me, instead of having these structures in place that I already did, now it's like, okay, well, you know, what else can I do? You know, so it's like, I don't know. I think the thing I'm struggling with is just staying with things I can. So whether it's like reading, or it's, you know, making sure I say a rosary daily, because there's no excuse not to at this point, or, you know, whatever, just cleaning my room, or, you know, we've been trying to like empty a lot of things out and kind of understand if we have too much, you know, just using our time wisely, you know, having too much stuff and trying to get rid of those things. And I think the challenge has really just been consistently like putting effort towards your day. It's so easy right now to just, you know, relax and chill and sleep in until 10:30 or whatever it is. And so that's the thing that I've been trying to focus on. I was like, okay, well, now you have a lot of time, so do something with it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so just to give the listeners out there a little bit of idea, obviously we're all aware of the global pandemic, and that being coronavirus and the COVID-19. So all of us we're in the state of California, so that means we're in shelter in place like most places, but we were kind of one of the key states that went to that really quick. And that means for all of us, so both your mom and I are both working from home. You're working from home now. You guys are in online school from home. So now we're in each other's space. in each other's face, and gyms are closed down, so all of our structures that we were accustomed to. And I think one of the things that when you were talking to me that came to my mind, it's like when you have a gym at home. It's really easy when it's at home to say, "Oh, I'll get to it later." Mm-hmm. So prayer, I'll get to it later. Mm-hmm. And we've been doing obviously online mass and trying to stick to our traditions and internally, but not having those sacraments at our fingertips. I mean, it feels very unsettling, and there's an emptiness. And so when you think about, there's that pandemic piece, and we have to be socially responsible. And we've gone back and forth between how serious is this? Is it a big deal? Is it not a big deal? We've all gone through our own things, and I think as we've realized, and obviously in the profession I'm at, I'm front and center working in the healthcare industry, not as a healthcare professional necessarily, as a clinician, but as somebody who works in the security, information security side of it. I, at firsthand, every day, all day, I'm experiencing what the effect is on people in our local communities. But in a very real way, think about what we've been experiencing in just this last week alone of our changing of our routines and folding in stuff like our fitness, like our faith, like the practicality of, okay, where are you doing your Zoom meeting? Okay, mom's gonna be over here doing her Zoom meeting, and I'll be in the den doing my Zoom meeting, and it's been kind of crazy. So that's practically, obviously Miko's in studio because he's was only planning for a week's spring break, and that got squashed, and so we're still trying to figure out the dynamics there. All your stuff's in Stubes. So so I think the pandemic piece we got, but we're in the season of Lent. It's one of our favorite seasons. We have a lot of our own traditions as a family that we do, and like this is like the go hard or go home time, right? Like when we think about our prayer, our fasting, our almsgiving, what is that? How did that change, or how did you adapt, or how are you adapting to that change, given the fact that the things that we typically up the ante on, as far as prayer, chapel time, doing the Stations of the Cross on Friday nights, all of that, how has that changed, or how are you adapting to it? I'll go with Meeks first.
Honestly, I think I'm still trying to adjust right now, because obviously it's hard to put away like dedicated prayer time. And because before I was doing like 30 minutes in the chapel, and then now it's just like, I do a rosary, and then that's maybe about it. Or like I try to watch a video, and it's just been, I think as I've been adjusting, it's kind of put in the back of my mind, unfortunately, like I'm thinking about all these other things that I'm trying to do during this time where, I'm not working and I don't have all those commitments. So I'm trying to fulfill that time and then forgetting about what I really need to do most, And so, I'd like to say I've done really good, but I probably haven't. I haven't completely fell off. Like I've done okay, but it's like, it's just hard when you don't have, because for me, especially, I struggle with not having a place to pray at. So if I don't have that place, it's really hard for me to sit in my bed or even just in my room, kneeling, whatever it is, because my mind will go off to everything that you could possibly think about other than my faith or my relationship with God. So that's just how my mind works. So it's hard for me. I need places, you know what I mean? If I'm at school, I need a library to go to, or I need some sort of room that I could sit down and do it at. Because if everything's in one space, I can't really do it, It's like even working out, I haven't been as consistent because you're just like you're saying, I'll get to it. So I think it's hard for me to do everything in one place. Like I really like to have my structures and my different places to go to. But other than that, I think the thing I've been most consistent with is rosary, obviously fasting on Fridays, something that everyone could do, some little cold shower action. I'm doing those one day a week. So that's something that, we're at home and then just take a quick L. It's only like a couple minutes, come back out. I guess trying to feed in more of those small things, So maybe it's like me just telling myself, let me clean up for mom and dad right now, or let me do something for someone else real quick. Maybe it's those kind of things we could gear more towards. I think that's what I've been doing a little bit more, just trying to be more conscious of cleaning up and kind of having those, not having too much, even in my room, with switching rooms, I've been trying to clean.
Taking care of things too.
Yeah, just trying to take care of things as much as possible. And then, especially for me in this time, during this Lent, is really trying to keep thinking about my purpose and what can I do right now to, whether it's getting out more content for us, something we want to do eventually is more individual videos where we can be a little bit more relatable, a little bit more personable, a little bit more vulnerable, and maybe like I feel the calling. I got to get on that. You know what I mean? And continue to try to. I think during this Lent and during this quarantine time is like narrowing in on my purpose and my focus, and like, okay, let's keep moving forward now. You know, even though those things are off, right? The chapel, those things are off, right? What can I do then?
Yeah, when Miko was saying finding purpose, it made me think of just the intentionality that is so important during this time, because it can be a blessing, but it could also be a huge step back or a setback for a lot of us. I find myself, like Meeks was saying, or you too, Dad, you know, like, oh, I'll get to it. The workouts have been pretty consistent, but now working from home a few days a week, it's been weird, because it's just like, well, I'm home. So, you know, I'll make breakfast when I feel like it, and I'll get to this when I feel like it. And so it's just being intentional about it, because this could be a huge blessing. I think the fact that this is all happening during Lent, I mean, obviously God doesn't make any mistakes. It's a chastisement, you know, it's a reawakening for us. I really feel like, you know, there's a reason why, whether the good or the bad, for the good or the bad of the person, that we're forced at home to face the reality of our family situations. And being in the mental health field, I mean, I can't imagine some of the family environments that my own clients or you know, just anyone that has, you know, troubling families are in. But there's a reality that, you know, the home, the family is the center of society, and God's kind of forcing us to make that interaction. And yeah, it's just an interesting time. And for me, it's just about being intentional. So, you know, like Meeks was saying, still doing the rosary, still fasting on Fridays. But I feel like a lot of the things, because of the stress, it's been so tempting to just lax. Oh, well, you're stressed. Oh, well, there's a lot going on. Oh, look at the world. You know, you can have this dessert today, even though you're not supposed to be having sweets. You know, and it's been tough. But I just being intentional, reminding yourself of, like we talked about a few episodes ago, the redemptive suffering. And this is even a greater time to offer things up, whether it be for your own family, for those who are actually facing COVID-19 personally, for the elderly, for the church, for the souls in purgatory. You know, there's always something to pray for. So during this time of suffering, I think it's a good reminder for all of us, especially myself included, you know, to be intentional during this Lent, especially in the midst of this craziness, to offer it up.
Mm-hmm. Some of the things that we've reflected on, have made changes on in our own home, is realizing, like, I think two things came to mind. Two of our coping mechanism as a family is what? Working out and our spiritual life, and actually spiritual life first, and then working out. And those two things were kind of stripped away from us. And so what do you do to cope? And so what do we do? We started to do things that are at home, working out together as a family. The other thing, to your point, Miko, is, you know, we have different areas in our home that we pray, but not a dedicated, like a true sacred space we can enter in. And one of the things, and we'll probably do a different video on that once we're turning an actual room into our own home chapel. And like, you know, my temperament, by the way, is one that's just going to go like all in. So I've got things coming that we're making that investment in, because what happens during this time where we are unsettled, and, you know, there's a lot of uncertainty there. So, you know, we'll probably do a different video on that and talk about setting up a sacred space and what that looks like. But I think that's a key thing, is to Miko's point, is you can get really comfortable praying in bed, and maybe some certain areas in the house, because we have certain areas in the house. I think about like what we call the Marian room, where the piano's at, and all the different Marian pictures in our Holy Family. But it's still, that was normally a supplement to what we have in our own chapel and our own parish, and sitting before the Lord in the Blessed Sacrament of the altar. So only having that, it feels like, wow, this is kind of on the lower end of the experience, if you will. The other thing, you know, when I think about how we've grown in our own experience with all of this, really is being mindful and intentional, as Keone was talking about, of not getting too lax, and how we interact with each other, because now we're in each other's space all the time. So, you know, it's really easy to come home after a day's work. And the other thing you brought up too, Keone, is like working from home. So a lot of people may take advantage of that. Like, are you doing an honest day's worth of work? Like, when you're saying you're working from home, are you actually working? And, you know, think about those. A lot of people out there, including our circle of friends and family, don't have jobs right now, and don't have the ability to work from home because they're not in that. And so if you're a person who has the ability, and that's a great blessing to still continue to work because you can work from home, it's real easy to get lax. It's real easy to, wake up in your bunny slippers and just have a cup of coffee and just kind of take it easy, check in here and there, and not really give your honest day's worth of work without even trying. Same thing with school, same thing with everything else. But how much more than with your prayer life? Right? Oh, well, it's not my fault. I got a dispensation. I don't have to go to Sunday mass. It's not my fault. I can't go to the chapel. It's not my fault. It's not my fault. Blah, 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 blah. And then we push it off on everything else. And then we back up and get lazy. Any thoughts on that from either one of you on just, again, going back to that intentionality and how, what advice can we give to our folks during this season of Lent? Because we don't know how long this is going to be. We know Easter this year is April 12th. Mm-hmm. We know it depends on the place, right? We see it going beyond that, but even the shelter in place is like through April 7th, it's going to go beyond that just because we're in that second wave, if you will, of the pandemic. But what's our advice to our folks? We're going to essentially experience an Easter without the holiest, highest form of mass that we experience on Easter Vigil.
Well, yeah, I think before, I'll let Meeks kind of comment on that, but before the advice part, I think we all want to know what you're all struggling with as listeners. So those you listening, how has your experience been? Like, comment below and tell us your experience. And I think something that's really important during this time of almost isolation is building a community. And this is where the gift of social media can really help and bring people closer together. And something that we've been stressing in doing these podcasts and building PPK is having a community that goes beyond our physical social circles. And so just let us know your struggles and how this Lent has been for you, how you're taking it, and hopefully we can build that community and make it stronger.
Yeah, that's a great point. Yeah. So, again, reach out to us on all the social media platforms, but definitely on this video here. What do you want to hear from us? What can we help you? We were just talking about this with moms, right? Do you bring a family episode in here and start to talk about what aspects of the family life or just life in general, like what can we do to help you, again, sustain while we're in this shelter in place, isolation, quarantine, time in the desert, really, moment for us as people for our first time, for all of us, probably the majority of us. Meeks.
Yeah, I think, doing a backflip off Keone's community, a little spiel there. I think one of the things that makes me think about is how important it is for us as a community to buy from small businesses and make sure they're okay, because it's not Starbucks and Nike that are going to be struggling after this. They'll be perfectly fine, just like they always are. But it's those people who are around, around the block or just across the street that really need our help and need our support. And I think that this is a time, there's a lot of ups and downs about this time. But one of the key, I think, takeaways that we can do from this time is coming together as an actual community, understanding, who needs what, what neighbor needs this, or they're struggling, they don't have a job, so they can't buy any groceries, whatever it is. And I think that's a step that we should take during this time, because it's I know that we are blessed from the fact that you guys still have a job, because then, that directly affects what we do and how we can live. And so I just think not taking anything for granted and really just starting to have more in mind about the people around us and our own duties that we have as a society, because that holds more than just doing what you want to do or going to your job. And, 9 to 5, it's more about how can we reach out to other people and help those in need and help the local coffee shop instead of going to Starbucks, or help the local Mediterranean restaurant instead of going to McDonald's or whatever it is, and how can we take those steps to help everybody?
True.
So that's one of my takeaways. And another one, I think, is just about, one of the biggest tests that we're going to be in right now is when you have all this free time, what is it that you're doing? Not only are you spending time praying, but I think if you're watching, so if you take the time to watch a Bishop Barron video instead of watching, like a basketball game, or old basketball game or something like that, what can that do for your day? How does that change the direction of your week, of how you interact with your family that day? Those kind of things. I think those are things we have to be really attentive of and super intentional, like we keep talking about intentional on. Because I know for me, the more I make an intention to, maybe read a couple pages, or the more I make an intention to, let me just watch at least a 10-minute video, or let me watch a little bit of Bishop Barron, I think those can change the course of your whole day because it's so easy to wake up and just fall into, I don't really want my brain. I don't really want to think right now. I do that too. Like, I don't really want to use brain power. Like, I'm just going to chill, watch 2002 finals, Lakers games right now.
I don't want to read this. I don't want to read the Summa right now.
Yeah, exactly. And doing those things, I think that's the biggest test right now that God's having during this time. And it's funny that's also during Lent. But just like, just being intentional about where are you looking at, what are you actually spending your time on now? Because that's a reflection of, I think, what your life will be like forward, right? I mean, if you're this is what you're doing in your free time now, then what's going to change later on,
I think one of the things before I kick it to Keone is there's a lot of people, and I think rightfully so, us included, that they're feeling, again, back to that point of instability, uncertainty, and so there's a certain level of fear, anxiety, stress. But this time of quarantine and this time of pandemic should cause us to reflect on, well, because the material world around us is in chaos right now, is uncertain and unstable. And so if we're so invested in the material world and we're feeling that level of anxiety and instability, that should cause us to say, well, wait a minute, I'm a disciple of Christ. Like, my hope is in God. My trust is in God, not in man. So even though I have a certain level of anxiety because I have a family to support and everything else, in the end, I believe in God's divine providence, right? There's two. God has a direct will and a permissive will. Did he directly will this? I doubt it, but nothing happens outside of his permissive will, right? Meaning that he allowed the chastisement, as Keone, to occur. So are we using this time, as Miko's saying, to actually reflect on what matters most? And then what am I doing during this time to safeguard that? So that would be, well, why am I so, out of balance? Is it because I'm so involved in my money, in my stocks, in my 401k plan, and the fact that I can't pay this mortgage or that more? And again, those are real issues. And as a father and a husband, I get it. But if that drives every day how I treat so here I am with my kids, imagine, and we've had a lot of time with each other and my wife. And if I'm so caught up in that and I treat you guys like trash, in the end, none of this stuff matters unless I have God, my wife, and my kids. So I think it's just to Miko's point, like, if you're not doing something to like really reflect and then think about that and go, like, what matters to me? Because some of you, maybe material world is what matters to you. Good luck with that. You know what I mean? This is changing and it's diminishing before our eyes. So just doing something, to Miko's point, to really think about why you're unstable and uncertain, aside from your natural issues that you have as a person trying to make ends meet.
I think during this time of Lent, we talk about wanting to change and wanting to grow in virtue or break bad habits and just making some sort of positive development in your own life. When we talk, I remember when we did a conference or the retreat, and we asked the kids, what are the top reasons you don't go to mass? And it's, I'm too busy. And I think it's interesting that this is happening during Lent because you're not busy. You're at home. And now it's coming face to face with those, like you said, those material things, the soccer practice or the everything that you consume your life with, the shopping or even work for some people. That can be, that's just what you do, is you get your money. And that may not be there right now. And I think it was divinely put in this place right now in this season of Lent for a stripping of any excuses, and we can easily fall into it. Even if we have habits, we can fall out of those habits because of the change and the instability. But I think the time right now, for all of you listening, for us here speaking to you, like it's about us really getting rid of those excuses because we don't have any anymore. We're at home with a lot of time on our hands. And what are we using to still grow in our relationship with God? Even if we can't go to mass right now, even if we can't go spend time in the chapel, how are we growing in our relationship with God? Because God is still here. Whether we can go to a physical church or not, he's still here, present in the home, still present in our hearts. And are we fostering that relationship, or are we letting it slip away? And it's just, so like I said, the excuses aren't there right now. So I'm calling out each and every one of you listeners, as well as us here, is, to really be intentional, because we can make excuses all the time. And there may be some of you that, you've been wanting to do something. I want to make this change, but later, or I want to make the change, but I'm just not ready. I hope you find I don't know what the word is, the push and the motivation right now during this season to really start to make that change. And even in this time of instability, even in this time of, what's going on, but it could be a real growth and time for huge improvements in our spiritual life if we really take it seriously. So just know we're praying for you, and it's an interesting time right now.
It is. So I would just offer up a couple of things, as I would say, echo Miko's point on supporting your local community, supporting, be socially responsible. I think one of the things that we've recognized real quick is that we can prevent the spread of it by honoring sheltering in place. And by you can also help those that are hustling out there, right? The Instacarts of the world, the DoorDashes and the Uber Eats, whoever you can support by going to your local small businesses that are really struggling right now and hurting, or buying gift cards. You've heard a lot of those recommendations out there, buying gift cards if you are able to. At the same time, continue to support your church. Just, they don't have the same people in the pews anymore. So they have people that they're trying to pay and offer us the faith when we actually get beyond this. And the other thing is, like Kenny was saying, like prayer. Like we should be 100% more intentional about praying for this crazy world, praying for our holy church, praying for people that are suffering in our world now more than ever, and to remember that our Lord died and suffered on a cross so that we may have a life. So I would just, encourage each and every one of you, to think about that. Let us know how we can better assist you all. But we hope that during this time of quarantine and uncertainty, that you can look to PPK as a resource to help you get through it, and a community that we can be for you in keeping the faith, staying strong, and staying positive. So may God bless you and all your families. And until we meet again, get holy or die trying.